what they are talking about. It's much difficult or more difficult to speak a quarter of an hour and say something than to speak 1 hour and say nothing. So please stick to the time. I don't want to present the authors too much. Obviously, at the beginning of each presentation, I will just list the names. They will present themselves through the topics that they are covering and through what they are saying. So let's start today with the global assessment of energy efficiency and sustainability. We start with Anam Shekhzadi from the University of Kassel in Germany.
Yeah.
Hello, Anam.
Hello.
Actually, looking at the distribution of presenters, I really start to think that the planet Earth is here, and we are citizens of the Earth. So Anam is coming from the Kassel University in Germany.
Yeah.
Hello. She will be talking about firm productivity, energy efficiency, and export in Asian, emerging, and developing countries.
Yeah.
Asia is now on top of a wave of development, and emerging and developing starts to be something that has got to be reviewed very thoroughly,
Yeah.
related to the countries of Asia. So, Anam, we are listening. Kindly stick to the quarter of an hour that was allocated to each speaker. Thank you. All the best. Come on.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thanks to all of you to join us and provide us such a great platform in this COVID time to share our research. So I will really try to stick with the timelines. Should I share my screen now? Okay.
Okay.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. So today I'm going to present my research on firm productivity, energy efficiency, and export in Asian emerging and developing country. I am a doctoral student at University of Kassel, Germany. So this is the part of my dissertation. So I will try to explain it as much as I can in the limitations of the time. So the agenda of my presentation is, first of all, I will discuss the motivation and the research question, then a literature review, then I will show my empirical model and the data which I used in this research, and then I will present my results and conclude my research presentation. So first of all, the motivation. Energy is a primary driver of environment, farm activities, and economic growth. Increasing end-use energy efficiency can defer the massive use of and massive need of power plants, energy infrastructure, energy production, and it can might mitigate the adverse effect of environmental effect in the Asian emerging and developing countries. So the existing discussion on environment and economic performance can lead us towards the Porter hypothesis. Porter hypothesis implies that impactable environmental policies provoke the form innovation and productivity. Energy related productivity benefits are larger than the energy related benefits. So, high productivity is the key element of the economy's aggregated economic growth. According to the global economic growth projections, the industrial sector required high energy efficiency consumption in developing world, as Asian Development Bank reported in 2013. The primary international energy use of developing Asia is expected to increase by 56% in 2035 from 34% in 2010. The other way, the Sustainable Development Goals also highlight energy efficiency improvement and expansion in energy infrastructure and investment and sustainable energy services in developing countries. Sorry. The goal related to energy efficiency improvement leads this study's motivation in two aspects. First, present research utilizes the measure of energy efficiency, assessing the firm performance related to energy efficiency in terms of environment across Asian emerging and developing countries. Second, this paper analyzed the impact of firms' energy efficiency on exports of firms for several Asian emerging and developing countries. Many studies examine the validity of Porter hypothesis. However, the results are mixed because prior research are failed to conclude the clear results about the validity of Porter hypothesis, because different studies use different environmental variables, different definitions. So some studies are in the favor of the validation of Porter hypothesis and some are not. Hamamoto in 2006, Alpai in 2002, Berman and Bui in 2001, and Harrington in 2000 found the strong and positive validation of the Porter hypothesis. Kreischmann and Richter in 2014 also support the argument that high environmental efficiency is associated with the firm's high productivity. So Cohen et al. In 1995 and Hart and Ahuja in 1996 and Rosso and Fortas in 1997 estimate this relationship and also find a positive relationship between environmental and firm's profit performance. There are some studies who has investigated the relationship between exports and energy efficiency, but they found the impact of export on energy efficiency. But in this research, I estimate this model as to find the impact of energy efficiency on export. So Andrew et al. Highlighted that firms play a role in mediating international trade and attract the trade flows in the economy. So there are some researchers like Eifert et al. In 2005, Forel in 2003, Boyd and Pang in 2000. They investigate the similar relationship for different industries, region, and time period, and find the positive correlation between energy efficiency and exports. To estimate this model, I use extended Cobb-Douglas production function, where I incorporate energy efficiency and quality certificate and export and firm size in our traditional production Cobb-Douglas production function. So here we can see, like on left hand side, ln y. Ln is the log form of the y, which indicates the firm productivity, and this is proxied by labor productivity, and labor productivity is measured as the total revenue per firm, firm per worker. So li is the labor, and it refers to the number of permanent full-time worker who are working in the firm. Ki denotes the capital intensity. This is also in the log form and is calculated as the fixed investment per worker. EEI is presenting the energy efficiency of a firm. This is also the main contribution of my study. Like for the detailed overview of energy efficiency, I use three different measures of energy efficiency. first I calculate definitely energy intensity. So I calculate three energy intensities measure, and then I derive three energy efficiencies from that energy efficiency measure. So first one is the inverse of the ratio of energy cost to the total revenue. Second energy efficiency measure is the inverse of ratio of energy cost to annual value added. And third is the inverse of energy cost to total variable cost ratio. So these are three measures which I incorporated in my model and estimate this model three times with all three different measures of energy efficiency. QC is the dummy variable, and it is labeled as if firm is having quality certificate from foreign companies, and firm exports are indicated by EX. I only use those firms who are involved in the direct export. This is the export variable. Next is FS indicating the firm size. Here I am using three firm sizes: small, medium, and large. Small firms are categorized where number of employees are from 5 to 9, and medium firms are categorized as where we are using no not we are using if firm are implying from 10 to 99 laborers and workers, and the large firms are those who are employed more than 99 workers. TI is the technology use license, like if firm is using a technology license. So I including that variable to incorporate some firm characteristics. DC and DIN are the country and industry dummies to control for the bias for unobserved feature in the data, and EI is the error term, white noise error term. So this is my extended Cobb-Douglas model, which is estimated by pooled OLS. The second, to estimate the second research question, like the study used a binary probit model for the empirical analysis of the association between export, energy efficiency, and firm productivity. Here my variable of export is binary, like if firm is involving in direct export or not. So that's why I employ this probit model to capture the non-linearities in the model and to capture the relationship between exports and energy efficiency. Here EX star is the binary variable which is calculated by EX, like if firm is involving in direct export then it will be 1 and 0 for otherwise. And this export variable is depend on M observables variable, where M observable variables are energy efficiency, three different measures of energy efficiency, firm productivity if firm is foreign owned by a foreign company, labor, technology, and firm sizes. So this is the probit model of my study. To estimate this model, I use 15 Asian emerging and developing countries. I take the categorization of this Asian emerging and developing countries from IMF. So by the definition of the IMF, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Cambodia, China, India, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, Mongolia, and so on, so on. These are countries which included in the sample of Asian emerging and developing countries. These are total around 30 countries which are including in the sample, but I use 15 countries because it depends on the data availability. This is not like my selection of the countries. This is just depend on the data availability. And I use data, cross-sectional data over the time period of 2011 to 2006, collected from World Bank Enterprise Survey for the farm level variables and World Development Indicators database for the exchange rate. So I use exchange rate of 2010, and all monetary variables are deflated on the 2010 exchange rate. So the unit of all monetary variables is US dollar, 2010 US dollar. So this is the summary statistics of my data. of the key variables. Like I use 6,940 forms, 40 observations, where farm productivity, this is also in the $1,000, $1,000 US. Capital intensity is also in $1,000 US. Energy intensity one is the ratio of energy cost to total revenue. Energy intensity two is the ratio of energy cost to value added. Energy intensity 3 is the ratio of energy cost to the total variable cost, and all these intensities lies between 0 to 1. And I already mentioned, like I use small firms, medium and large. So minimum number of employees are 5 and maximum are 810. And technology use, exports, if firm is owned by foreign companies and if firm is having quality certificate, they all are dummy variables. And for the firm size, I use categorical variable, like I have three categories of firm size: small, medium and large. This is the energy intensity of countries, this energy intensity by countries. So here are the list of countries which are included in my sample, and the number of years from 2009 to 2006. And these are the three different measure of energy intensity. Here we can see that around all my countries have more than average energy intensity, but we can see Malaysia and Philippines and Cambodia has the highest energy intensity in among the sample, because Malaysia, Philippines are newly industrialized countries and they are more industrialized. So that is the reason all my three measures are showing that these countries are having highest energy intensity among the sample. And only three or four countries like Thailand, Vietnam, and Mongolia, who have a very less energy intensity, even less than the average energy intensity in the sample. This is the measure of energy intensity by firms, where the small firms have the largest energy intensity as compared to the medium firm and larger firms, and the large firm has the lowest energy intensity as compared to the average energy intensity. So here also I measure the three energy intensity measures, and three and all three are giving us the same message. Here I categorize my industries, my manufacturing sectors, like the industry who have largest share in the sample, like food, garment, textile, and non-metallic minerals and basic metals. They are the largest share in the sample. So I categorize them as it is, and the all others manufacturing industries who are having the less share, I include them in the others, and capturing the energy intensity. And here
Anam, you
plastic.
only have 2 minutes. Pass to
Okay.
conclusion. Say what you have really
O-
achieved in this
okay,
exercise.
okay, okay.
Thank you.
So this is the results of my main model, where we can see like energy efficiency, exports, and capital intensity and labor have positive relationship with the firm productivity. And here we can say in the small firms and in large firm, energy efficiency is significantly related with the firm productivity. And in small and large firm, here we can see. We can say that here we can validate the Porter hypothesis, like increasing energy efficiency will increase the firm productivity. So here we can have a positive relationship between energy efficiency and firm productivity. This is the sector wise. Here again, in all our sector, energy efficiency playing a positive role in the firm productivity. And here again, in all our sector, we can validate the Porter hypothesis. This is the second model, where we can see like energy efficiency is impacting the exports or not. Here we can see that energy efficiency negatively playing role in the firm productivity of small firms and positively impacting the exports of the large firms, and our firm productivity and capital intensity and labor and all other variables are contributing in the firm exports. So these results are the results of small firms are also in line with the study of Cole, who also estimated that in small firm energy efficiency is negatively playing role in the firm exports. So this is the conclusion of my study, where I found that the positive connection between energy efficiency, firm productivity, and export in Asian emerging and developing country. This research also highlight a relevant outcome in the environmental context of energy saving on exporting and firm productivity. Empirical results specify the positive correlation between energy efficiency and labor productivity and consistent with all three different proxies of energy efficiency. Here I also present the result of only with one energy intensity measure, because if I present all three tables, they are similar, so it will be more complex and difficult to understand. So that's why I only present the one energy efficiency measure result, but my results are consistent with also with other two measures. Uh, and the finding of my studies are also consistent with the results of Moita and Bano and Nancy in 2019. They also found that the lower productivity has a positive relation with energy efficiency. Uh, these results support Porter hypothesis, which implies that environmental policies to increase energy efficiency also increase the productivity. These results indicate significant policy implication related to energy saving. Improving energy efficiency could reduce the necessity for investment in energy infrastructure, fuel price volatility, low fuel cost, high competitiveness, and improve total well-being and enlarge energy affordability. So this is what I did so far. Thank you very much for your attention and listening. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you a lot. I would rather like to keep discussions at the end, such that everybody has got the opportunity to present, and then we have let's say a final discussion where each of the speakers will have a chance to say something extra related to, or to ask a question or to the other speaker.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Let's pass now to Elisa Valeriani. Actually, she is a co-author together with Maria Giovanna Bosco.
I am Maria Giovanna Bosco, actually.
LA, it's you. Sorry,
I'm sorry, but yeah, I prevented the authors as I connected because Elisa had a problem. She couldn't make it, so she asked me to replace her today at the presentation.
Okay, it's all right. It's nice to meet you too. Whenever I hear regional policies to boost firms' energy efficiency and disaster response, I remember that I am an ex-Enea. I've been working a lot in Centro Ricerche Energia de la Casaccia, and a study on dynamics of risk in the Italian natural gas system won an E-Special award. But this is a long time ago. And now we have to see how energy efficiency and disaster response actually boost companies' productivity and so on. Thank you. Go on. Again, please stick to 15 minutes.
Yes.
I will let you know when you're close to the end, such that you can pass to conclusions. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Okay, so I hope everybody can see my presentation. So first of all, as I mentioned before, I'm replacing Elisa Valeriani today. We actually prepared this work together. We've been working for a while on the issues related to the earthquake in Emilia-Romagna, which is a northern Italian region in 2012, and the policy interventions that affected the area after the earthquake. So our study basically is composed of the following points. I will talk very briefly about the quake and the damages. I will mention the rationale for public intervention in case of support to energy efficiency as a whole and in case of disasters specifically. I will present briefly the data of the firms who benefited from the subsidies from the local government to cope with damages of the earthquake. And then we present a very short list of other policies, international policies undertaken to promote energy efficiency in firms, even though, to my knowledge, there are very, very few studies studying actually the situation, actually I would say the case of firms receiving a support from the public authorities to improve the energy efficiency of their processes. So, first of all, the idea is that we have the data, the individual data of firms who benefited in terms of increased support for energy efficiency after the Emilia-Romagna earthquake. The Emilia-Romagna earthquake caused a number of casualties. There were two events, very critical events in May 2012. But the feature upon which we focus is that not only official, I would say, public buildings, homes were affected, but also industrial buildings. The point is that the area where the earthquake struck is one of the most productive areas in Italy. The area affected by the earthquake alone represents 2.5% of national Italian GDP. So there are a lot of firms, businesses, factories, all clustered together in this area, which is at the north of Modena, the Modena area in Emilia-Romagna. For instance, there are a lot of factories by Barilla, you may know. There are factories working for Ferrari, you may know. And alone this area represents 27% of the regional value added. So the damage to the industrial texture was so important that we chose to focus on the energy efficiency interventions exactly targeting damages to the economic compounds in the area. The damages were relevant, of course. We are talking about billions of euros. Not only were buildings affected, but also stocks, also machineries, also instrumentations. Sometimes, in some cases, the buildings were destroyed completely and they could not even be rebuilt. They had to be rebuilt somewhere else. That means moved, reconstructed from zero, and sometimes the area where the quake struck was not, I would say, suitable to host buildings anymore. So the area was really very heavily affected. The damages to the agricultural and agri-industrial sector, for instance, were estimated in 2.3 billion euros. For instance, the areas, in these areas, there are a lot of firms working for the Parmigiano-Reggiano consortium. They were selling, after the earthquakes, a lot of cheese online. They were asking for help to buy their stocks because they didn't have the place to stock their cheese anymore because they were destroyed. So all the country was trying to help in this sense. And also, for instance, manufacturing activities were damaged for about 1.8 billion euros. In terms of buildings, in terms of goods, stocks, and relocation of necessary instrumentations and buildings. Why talking about energy efficiency after an earthquake? Because unfortunately and unwelcomely, of course, the earthquake, like many disasters in nature, offer an unwelcome opportunity to rebuild from zero, to construct again, to start with higher level of efficiency in terms of energy consumption. And therefore, even if, of course, the occasion was not nice and was not something one could ever wished for, still the local government caught the point and intervened with with the provision of subsidies in order to, we are all very aware of the problem of CO2, carbon dioxide emissions, the development goals, 2030 development goals, the Green Deal by the European Union. So the European Union invested a lot in energy efficiency, in the directives promoting the energy efficiency as a primary goal for all countries in the European Union, and of course also for local governments. So even if government intervention, of course, per se is something forbidden by the treaties in the European Union, there is a specific waiver for natural disasters, and therefore the regional government in Emilia-Romagna used this room for intervention and tried to fill the gap of the energy efficiency, still featuring a lot of the buildings across all Europe, because we should remember that CO2 emissions are mainly due to heating of buildings and especially homes. And most of the buildings in Europe, 75% of buildings in Europe is energy inefficient. And at the current rate of renovation, it would take a century to make them all energy efficient as the best practice nowadays. So, of course, giving an incentive by the government is necessary. Is something that you cannot do without. I will go fast to the point where the region created a platform where businesses affected could present an application. And there was this procedure that awarded the firms the money they needed to reconstruct, rebuild, refurbish, and so on their buildings and their factories. And after that, it must be underlined that for every business asking explicitly for a cost contribution in terms of energy efficiency, an extra 50% of the total cost allotted for the firm was extra awarded to the firms for energy efficiency. So wherever a firm declared in their application that they had to rebuild or restore or reconstruct a building, a facility, reaching a higher performance in terms of energy savings, there was this extra subsidy awarded to the firms. So basically this allowed all firms affected in the area to improve drastically their energy performance. So these firms were basically from manufacturing. There were about 400 firms we are considering here, and those are only the firms who explicitly asked for the energy efficiency cost contribution. So 2/3 are from the manufacturing areas, and 1/4, I would say, agriculture, and the others from trade and services. And the main sectors where we find the beneficiaries firms for this cost contribution to energy efficiency are in manufacturing of food products and mechanics. But as you can see from this distribution, more or less all the sectors in the economy for the businesses located in the area were given the possibility of having this benefit, this cost contribution. And finally, the amount of money they were awarded. 31% of firms were given about 100,000 and 500,000 euros, and 25% were given about 500,000 to 1 million euros, and a little less the rest. So the amount of money was consistent, was, you know, is not just few euros. And our study is still preliminary. We didn't still have the data or the model actually trying to connect the investment in energy efficiency made at the moment they received the money from the local government with the potential future energy savings and eventually gains in productivity. We are still considering the use of a net present value approach, but we are also stuck in the problem of not having basically literature with referral. So as I said before, there are very few studies in the literature trying to address the intervention of the government in the life, in the balance sheet of firms when awarding of subsidies or aids of some kind. Because when we think of macroeconomics, it's quite easy to think of studies like Copenhagen Economics 2012, where they really brought about a large, a large study on all the possible macroeconomic effects in terms of jobs and value added stemming from reaching higher energy intensity. But at firm level, it's much more difficult. So we have 4 studies that by now we could reach. The first 2 come from the United Kingdom. There is one from USA and another from China. So the 2 from United Kingdom are, the first one is related to a project started in 2009 in the northwest region of UK. And the project was funded with European funds. And the idea was to give a range of audit and reviews, support in auditing and trainings to firms that wanted to improve their energy efficiency. So not direct money, but assistance and audits. The idea is that the estimation provided that savings for example, carbon dioxide were more than 300,000 tons, and especially when we talk about jobs created and value added created, the multipliers in terms of sales of the interested firms is about 1.53, which is a lot. Another study still from the United Kingdom, I will synthesize, but said that there was this ratio 1 to 4.75. That means there were, for every installer job created in terms of insulation, etc., there were 4.75 jobs extra created. So this is a large multiplier in terms of labor market. Finally, in the United States, still we have this project which is called here, the Industrial Assessment Centers Program. It's an audit program, it's a support program. It's not a grant of money of whatever, but the estimation through years is that they reached higher savings in terms of energy, about 30 millions of total cost savings for firms included in the project, of which about $23 million of energy savings, which is still a lot. Finally, very briefly, there is these standards codes in China for new constructions and public buildings, but most interesting, in 2011 and 2012, the Chinese government provided a subsidy of 20 yuan for square meters for refurbishing and renovating and retrofitting 4 million square meters of buildings in 4 pilot cities: Shanghai, Tianjin, Shenzhen, Chongqing. And these, we don't have the estimations of the effects because these were pilot projects, but here we have a direct disbursement from the government. So to conclude, the earthquake gave the local government in Emilia-Romagna a unique opportunity to enter directly the economic structure of the area with subsidies according to a law because of the natural disaster. This helped firms retrofitting heavily their facilities. Of course, there were also subsidies given to households, public buildings, historical buildings, etc. And the extra cost contribution was 15% of the total. And we are now about to try and evaluate the potential energy savings stemming from these interventions, and also try to figure out a multiplier in terms of value added and jobs in the area. So I am in time, yes. Thank you very much. And I give the floor to the next speaker.
Thank you a lot. And actually, when I was ready to say you have 2 minutes, you passed to the conclusion, so it's okay.
Thank you.
Grazie, Maria Giovanna. It was a nice presentation. At the end, we will have some time to discuss. Well, the only thing that I want to say is that we also have in Romania some unwanted, as you said, experience with earthquakes. And the fact that a policy of energy efficiency is creating jobs is actually very beneficial also for state budget and through the taxes on wages.
We will talk about this later, Hope.
Sure, we in the Romanian Energy and Economy Association, we have been doing some analysis on that. We can share information. Now we are at our third speaker, and I think we are in good time. It's Jubair Syed. Is going to tell us quantitative analysis of energy security and environmental sustainability using dynamic multi-sector energy economic model. That's a nice thing. And his co-authors, actually he is now at the University of Tokyo in Japan, and his co-authors are Ryoichi Komiyama and Yasumasa Fuji. What should I say? Domo arigato gozaimashita.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you for the nice introduction. I hope you can see the screen, and yeah, it's a good afternoon for the people from Europe, but oh, sorry, just a moment.
Mr. Seed?
No, can you hear me?
Not very well.
Hello? Hello? Yes, hear me?
Yes, sir. You can try to.
I'm sorry, maybe the network issue is causing the problem. I will try to explain as much as possible. First, I would like to Professor Purika for the nice introduction. Yes.
You should start your camera because we see nothing. We don't see you.
Please go out. If you want, Purika, we can go on with Nis della Valle, Sid, Mr. Sid. We can try in the finish if you want.
So you should we pass to the next speaker, huh?
Okay.
Okay, and then when problems
Mr.
will be
Sid,
solved.
Mr. Sid, are you listening me?
Yes, I am back. I'm sorry
okay.
for the interruption.
Okay.
Maybe I will just stop the video and just share the screen due to the
Okay.
network issues.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, as I am from Tokyo, it's past midnight. So and the network is not stable right now. Anyway, so the professor already introduced the topic, the quantitative analysis of energy security and environment sustainability using dynamic multi-sector energy economic model. And yeah, my topic is not direct with energy efficiency, but how security and so the basic flow of today's presentation will first I introduce my topic and I explain how the model was developed. Then I should explain some of the input parameters and the rationale for their choosing. And I will explain the results and provide some concluding remarks. The main objective of this research is to investigate the energy economic relationship, especially in the developing regions of South Asia, to analyze different policy scenarios for sustainable development in the city sector. As we all know, energy security, economic.
Oh, okay. We can attend 2 minutes. When we go in, we can speak with Mr. Seed.
You know, I was thinking it's 1 o'clock at night in Tokyo now. Actually, probably they already passed to tomorrow. Look, okay, let's give some time to Jubair Syed to try to prepare his to come back, and let's pass to the next presentation. The authors are Paolo Bertoldi and Nives della Valle, and she will present actually an interesting title on how to unlock the human potential for promoting energy efficiency, a review on the barriers and levers. I was doing some modeling on MEMS, you know, Richard Dawkins' MEMS, and related to energy and to financial systems and to penetration of technologies. So I personally would be very curious to hear Nives della Valle speaking and telling us about how to unlock the human potential in the European Union. Actually, they are from the Joint Research Center of the European Union. Please, the floor is you, Nives.
We don't listen you, Nives. Can you open?
Sorry, I was muted. Thanks a lot, Professor Purica, for the nice presentation. Just 1 second that I will share my screen. Let me see. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to present the work co-authored with Paolo Bertoldi. My name is Ines Della Valle, and I work as my co-author Paolo Bertoldi at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. I work as a scientific officer. My background is behavioral economics, and I apply this discipline to energy policy. And today, what we will be doing with this study is to show you a policy perspective, hoping that it might be useful and then implemented in the long term, more short term than long term. The context is the context of energy efficiency. We all know that energy efficiency is a win-win solution because it's one of the most prominent means to fight climate change, as it enables to cut the greenhouse emissions from the most polluting sectors such as buildings and also transport. And that is the reason why energy efficiency is now a policy priority for many world institutions, and notably the European Union is one of those. And that is the reason why the European Union has identified energy efficiency as a priority in the decarbonization scenarios identified in the Energy Roadmap 2015, and lately also in the European Green Deal, and that also includes the Renovation Wave package. But also we know that despite the huge potential to fight the climate change and curb the emissions that cause climate change, we also know that the energy efficiency policy goal is not without challenges, and we know that the fact that people and also firms do not adopt energy efficiency in the way that the cost optimal models and estimates predict cause the so-called energy efficiency gap or paradox that actually make the energy efficiency investment a further policy goal to achieve. In the sense that it involves not only policymakers that have to identify complex interventions to promote this energy efficiency investment, but also scientists that have to understand why these energy efficiency investments are not that optimal as it is predicted by the cost optimal estimates. And so, as I said, scientists have extensively investigated energy efficiency from different disciplinary perspectives that not only involve the purely economic point of view, so the cost aspects, but also other aspects that sometimes relate also to the more social perspectives and the social considerations. Because in the end, the energy efficiency gap is due to the human factor. So if we don't see that level of energy efficiency adoption, is because it's not adopted by people and also firms. In this study, anyway, we take the perspective of people, so let's say the residential sector, and so the normal people, not the organization, as it was explained in one of the previous presentation. So what we see is that Besides, the scientists have investigated the decision to invest in energy efficiency from multidisciplinary perspectives. So far, energy efficiency policymaking has been informed only by those perspectives that look at drivers and cost and barriers. So disregarding other essential considerations that actually characterize the problem of investing or not in energy efficiency, such as the perspectives that consider more social systems and people. So the motivation behind this study is a review study that try to see the current status quo of the energy efficiency policy making, so that is characterized by these barriers and drivers point of view, but also trying to go beyond that in order to make energy efficiency policy making more effective, and in the end try to close that energy efficiency gap that we have seen. It's a huge challenge to achieve. And why we want to try to close this information gap in energy efficiency policy making, because in the end, energy efficiency policy will not work unless it takes into account also the social nature of energy and also the distributional injustice aspects that relate to every energy policy measures. And in that sense, the sociological perspective can help, because it explicitly takes into the consideration these social and ethical issues. And with this study, we aim to close exactly this information gap in energy efficiency policy making, making the case for informing energy efficiency policy making with different types of perspectives other than cost and drivers and barriers and different types of knowledge. So as I said, we will go briefly through the current status quo of energy efficiency policy making, how it is made. It is, of course, informed by a scientific approach that is the evidence-based approach, as many other policy areas are characterized of. So there is this predominance. Energy efficiency policy making is informed by a type of knowledge that is usually discovered through objective measurement and is assumed to be objective and generalizable. So this kind of knowledge is used as to find the best solutions to solve the problem that in this case is closing the energy efficiency gap and the promotion of energy efficiency investments. In addition, the type of knowledge that usually is adopted in the current energy efficiency policy making is the knowledge that comes from specific disciplines that take the perspective of agency. That means that these disciplines focus on the individual as the unit of analysis, because individuals are seen as the main drivers of social phenomena with their decisions. And with this, within this perspective and this approach, the energy efficiency gap is understood as a failure for individuals to make optimal choice, that in this case is investing in energy efficiency, because energy efficiency is by definition an optimal choice, because it exerts positive consequences both on the environment and the society, but also on the individual budget. So within this perspective, the policy goal is to detect through this knowledge that comes from this agency-focused perspectives. The policy goal is to detect and remove the barriers to the decision to invest, and detect also the drivers, the decision to invest in energy efficiency. And once these are detected, then the aim is to remove and promote the barriers and drivers. And here, with the review, we just identified the barriers and drivers that in this case have been so far informing the energy efficiency policy making in the context of understanding why people don't invest enough in energy efficiency, or why they actually invest in energy efficiency. And these are the perspectives coming from neoclassical economics, but also lately from behavioral economics and psychology, which are exemplary behavioral sciences, so the disciplines that systematically study human behavior. And we all know that neoclassical economics assume individuals to make a rational choice, so that always take into account the available information, that always make the choice that maximizes their profit. And in this context, the energy efficiency gap, according to neoclassical economics, should not exist, because energy efficiency is the most optimal choice. So we can see here that from the neoclassical economic perspectives, the barriers relate more to the market failures that then justify the interventions from policy, because these are meant to correct the market failure themselves. And this can be related just in a nutshell: the imperfect information, credit constraints, split incentives, and regulatory failures. Then we can also see that thanks to the advent of this behavioral science approach to policy, we also see that the understanding of energy efficiency gap problem has been actually enriched. And so the behavioral economics approach actually acknowledge that individuals don't make decisions that are always rational, but actually systematically deviate from rational choice assumptions. And so now we can see that these deviations that are usually so-called behavioral failures create an understanding of why people don't invest enough. And so people don't invest enough because they are present biased, because they make preferences that are reference dependent, but also they have incorrect belief of the benefits of energy efficiency. And also when they make decisions, they have limited attentions and they are biased by the status quo. So these things are also reflect some kind of barriers to policy making. And we can also see that there are some drivers from the disciplines coming from especially behavioral economics. In the sense, we can see that pro-environmental preferences exist. People who are motivated to protect the environment are willing to invest in energy efficiency. And we also see that from psychology, we have a lot of drivers that can be, if detected, can actually improve the design of policy, such as emotions, environmental values, intentions, and personal and social norms predict investment in energy efficiency. Here, just I won't go through this because it's time is running out, but later we can discuss further. But with the understanding of barriers and drivers, policy, current energy efficiency policy can actually implement some interventions that try to correct market failures and behavioral failures in order to promote investment in energy efficiency. We can see here the traditional financial instruments, regulatory instruments, information instruments, but also the instruments that come directly from behavioral sciences, the so-called nudges on the right-hand side and boosts. And later on, if we have time, I will also like to go through them more in depth. What we would like to here propose is that actually there might be an alternative approach to the current energy efficiency policy making that actually is not the one that is based only on empirical evidence and scientific knowledge, but that takes knowledge from a different epistemological assumption, so that reality is not objectively measurable like the perspectives that we have been investigated so far, but reality can be also socially constructed and subjective. This is the perspective of sociology that is peculiar for the problem of energy, because energy is not like the other goods. Energy is a social relation, and so when making policies, these social dimensions have to be considered and embedded throughout the policy cycles. So in this sense, we can see here that the focus here is not longer on individuals but on social structures. So the understanding here is the influence that, for instance, social practices and social classes have on investment in energy efficiency. For instance, for the social classes, we can see that some energy efficiency investment can horizontally diffuse rather than vertically diffuse across different social classes. And these considerations should be taken into account when designing policies. Otherwise, there might be the risk of corroborating an injustice within suboptimal all over, let's say, social classes, if some practices cannot diffuse vertically, for instance. And so the alternative approach here is the one that energy efficiency policy making is seen as a democratizing process, where instead of using scientific knowledge as an input to inform policy intervention, citizen engagement is the core that actually make the policy making process produce in the end a solution and also frame the problem. In this case, the involvement of the involved actors, so citizens, so live in the house and produce with their meanings and values the energy-related practice, can be the most valuable source of information to policymakers to understand why there is such a low investment level, and also which can be the best solution to be applied in that specific context. But also it could be nice to involve citizens in the monitoring and evaluation process, because then they can provide some tacit knowledge and experience that can be of value for the design of future policies. So what we are proposing here is not to disregard the evidence-based policy approach that is for sure the one that it can be measured and can be also more replicable, but actually is to enrich this energy efficiency policy making with this more subjective approach that takes into consideration the insights from sociology to understand the problem, and also this subjective view of knowledge that legitimize citizens' voice throughout the whole policy cycle, and then with the hope of producing more sweeted and more effective policy interventions. So I think the time is out, and so I thank you for the attention.
Thanks a lot. It's very interesting. Probably in the next definition of energy vulnerability, we will have to introduce a term of credibility and trust from the residential, at least, if not from the whole spectrum. And it is interesting to try to model the type of reaction of public reaction and human reaction to the introduction of energy efficiency measures. We are doing a large campaign of, as it is called, enveloping, insulating the building, residential building in Bucharest, for example. And there are various type of reactions from, yes, it's good, to, wow, we didn't expect that to happen. It's not so good because you can't breathe any longer, and the air in the apartments is not refreshed with the same velocity. But what you're doing, I think it's important, because the existence of public reaction is a very strong driver for what is actually happening in energy efficiency right now. Look, we have somehow finished, and thank all the speakers for
No. Mr. Purica, if you want, we can try with Mr. Sid to try to the presentation at the moment, because
Who's
at
that?
the moment, yeah, we can try another one with.
Good, it's okay.
Okay, Mr. Sid.
He has finally came in. Good.
Yes,
if he could connect, let him speak. Ah, splendid.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, Mr. When you go on, you can ask me when you go on. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So. Okay, let me. So it is already in the screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, we can move to the next slide. Maybe slide number 3, because I already gone through this part. Next, please. And the next one. Yes, so I was trying to, the previous one, slide number 4, please. Okay, so I was going to introduce my country, Bangladesh, the analysis region. It is one of the very smaller countries in the world in the South Asian region. The land area is very small, but the population is quite huge, and the population density is also very high, as we see more than 1,000 people per square kilometer. But the country is growing in terms of economy. The GDP growth was more than 8% in the last year, and even during the COVID pandemic, it is supposed to grow around 5% in this financial year. So the country is categorized as one of the least developed countries, but it is growing, and maybe it will continue growing. Next slide, please. So here we show the energy and economic scenario of Bangladesh. We already explained the GDP. It is growing almost exponentially for the last 10 years. And if you look at the energy supply, in the energy mix, natural gas, the indigenous natural gas, it takes a significant space, other than some imported oil and coal. So as the country is growing and the energy demand is also increasing at an exponential rate, the future energy security is at stake, because the indigenous natural gas is depleting. As we see for the last 3 or 4 years, there is no growth in the natural gas consumption, and the country is currently thinking about importing natural gas and coal and even nuclear technology for to keep the future growth continuing. Next slide, please. So here we show the growth in the electricity sector, because we want to focus in this part, because electricity is one of the cleanest form of modern energy. And as we see from the previous growth trend for the last 10 years and the future projections of the government, it is quite optimistic. But if we look at the energy mix, the electricity generation and the installed capacity mix, it is highly dependent on the natural gas. So single source is very risky for such a country in the developing stage. Next slide, please. So in this analysis, we prepare a multi-sector energy economic model. We call it the dynamic multi-sector energy economic model. It is a hybrid model that takes consideration of the top-down economic sectors following the general equilibrium data. And it also incorporates the bottom-up electricity sector, getting input from the load curves and the different cost factors for different generation technologies. And the final outcome of this model is it gives the production values from different economic sectors, as well as electricity generation and optimum dispatch for each and every generation technologies in the minimum cost that could keep the economic growth at maximum. Next slide, please. So here we show the model objective function and also the constraints. The main objective function is to maximize the utility, whereas keep the cost of electricity generation at the lowest. And the constraints are both from the top-down economic sectors and also the bottom-up sectors. The top-down constraints that include the general economic supply-demand balance, the physical resource balance, the source of natural resources like coal, gas, and oil, the fossil fuel resources, also the capital investment for future growth, and the labor population growth, and the skills, and the linearization of the sales function, constant elasticity of substitution. And from the bottom up sectors, it incorporates the technical limitations from each electricity technologies. It also includes the load following constraints of thermal power plants, because we know they don't change abruptly. The capacity factor of different renewable generation technologies is also taken into consideration. Also, the annual maintenance schedule and capacity reserve electricity supply demand balance at each and every hour has been considered in this analysis. Next, please. So here we show the main features of this model for Bangladesh. We separated the top-down economic sectors into 8 aggregated economic sectors that includes the agriculture and livestock, the natural fossil fuel resources like coal, oil, gas, and the industry, transport, service, and electricity sectors. We analyze it for 10 time points starting from 2015 and ending at 2105, considering the 2015 as a base year. The base year data for consumption and international trade, those has been obtained from the JIT-Obtain database, the global trade analysis project maintained by the Purdue University. And the bottom of the electricity sector, it has been subdivided into generation technologies, including the nuclear, coal, oil, gas, hydro, biomass, and hydro, solar, and wind power generation technologies. Next, please. Next slide, please. So here we provide the input assumptions for this analysis. We consider the total reserves and resource for different fossil fuel sources, and specifically for Bangladesh, we also consider the amount for based on the existing data. And here we show the chart table that compares the global resource considering them into one specific quantity, and also the cost and in terms of the energy content. Next slide, please. And for this analysis, we considered the labor population and the population assumption based on the United Nations World Population Prospects 2019 for the from the starting year to the end of the analysis years at 5 years interval. And next, please. So we show the bilateral trade information for Bangladesh obtained from GitHub database in this figure. On the left one, the import values are shown. We see that there are different types of things being imported from different parts of the world, whereas the export is almost single product dependent, that is the apparel, then clothing, accessories, and the knitting products. And there is a trade balance, trade difference between the import and exports, but it is growing exponentially as the country is also growing in terms of economy. Next, please. So here the formulation of the GTAP database has been shown that incorporates like how the country's economic sectors are connected, and how it interacts with the global counterparts in terms of imports and exports. And we move to the next slide. Next, please. Okay, so before showing the results, we are going to explain the previous one, please. So we create 3 different scenarios based on different annual consumption growth, and those are the business as well, low growth and high growth scenarios. So we consider individual consumption growth per year and create these scenarios. And also we consider 2 different scenarios based on the carbon tax policy. So the initial assumption is no carbon tax, and then we apply the $10 per ton carbon dioxide tax and see the effects. Next one, please. So here we show the results in terms of GDP growth and the composition. For the low and the business as well cases, we see linear growth, whereas for the high growth cases, we see kind of exponential growth. And the GDP composition at the BAU case, we see mainly the contribution comes from the consumption, and we had some assumptions like we kept the ratio of production to import fixed, and also the export quantity was maintained fixed for the whole analysis. Next one, please. So the main outcome of our analysis is the electricity generation mix for optimal dispatch and maintaining the economic and the environmental issues. So for without any carbon constraints, we see that the electricity generation mix is highly dominated by natural gas and nuclear energy. As we see, the natural gas is depleting. Bangladesh has introduced a nuclear power in the electricity mix just a few years back, and the currently under construction plant will be online very soon. Yeah, nuclear supplies the base load, whereas natural gas based production it continues as a like for the load following mode. And there is hardly any contribution from renewable energy sources, as it is not that much prevalence in case of Bangladesh for the on-grid case. But if we apply some sort of carbon restrictions, then we see a different results. Can we move to the next slide? Next, please. So here we see that with the carbon tax policy, $10 per ton of CO2, we see that solar and wind energy comes into the electricity generation mix, taking place of the natural gas and reducing the load. So yes, with the proper policy formulation, we can have a good contribution from carbon-free options like renewables, like solar and wind, and also a significant contribution from the nuclear energy. In order to conclude this analysis, we can say that the model we developed, it can relate the growth in the electricity sector endogenously with the changes in other economic sectors. And it also identifies the effect of policy change like imposition of carbon tax, and it provides a pathway to introduce renewable at large scale. The population growth, real consumption growth, migration pattern, foreign remittance issues that should be taken into consideration for more realistic outcomes, which we are planning to do in near future. And the impact of the material and industry sector could be linked together with the energy and electricity growth in order to elaborate the renewable energy generation by increasing the time resolution, so that the intermittency of this technology could be addressed in further deeper. And we want to expand the single country model into multiple regions, including the India and Pakistan, to observe the effect on the electricity trade. And next slide, please. Next, please. Okay, here we list the references that has been cited in this analysis, and yeah, that's all for now. And we'd like to thank our supporter and the supervisor from JSPS, Kakinhi Grant. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you a lot. We've had 4 very interesting presentations, from looking at the enterprises in terms of energy efficiency and the connection to disaster events, then looking at the presence of the credibility in the people that would actually absorb this type or allow these measures for energy efficiency to go ahead. And I would rather look also at the credibility of the CEOs of the commercial companies, not only of the residential, to finally a full developed model applied to a certain country, in this case to Bangladesh, to discuss and see how energy evolution is actually possibly to be predicted up to a certain level. I will rather give about 3 minutes, 2-3 minutes to each author, to each presenter, to say something that they think is important in connection to their presentations. Let's start with Anam in the order of presentations, if she is still here. Okay, Anam, 2 minutes. Say something that you think is important in connection to what you've been doing, please.
Yes, I would like to say, um, and as energy efficiency is a very hot issue and very necessary, important, in relevant with the developing countries, because energy is a very crucial issue, and it's going to be a very tough to be energy conserving and to fulfill the energy demand for the people in the developing country, as around many billions people are suffering from the lack of electricity provision. So energy efficiency is really important and relevant in this context. So for the as far as developing countries and developed country also concerned, and so we should stick with this kind of studies, in which being a researcher we can highlight the importance of energy efficiency, and we can guide our policymakers in this way, to make some policies to conserve energy, and to think about the people who are deprived of this facility of energy in this modern era, to develop some useful policy for the energy efficiency, and to communicate with the developed countries, to please put less pressure on developing countries to utilize and make the environment so dirty, to make their economies more developed, and to protect our environment. It's important to think on energy efficiency and to work on energy efficiency in different aspects, whether on firm level, on country level, utilize macroeconomic variables. So that's why it's my concern to work on this, on firm efficiency, firm energy efficiency in developing countries, to highlight the issue and to advise our policymaker to make some relevant policies. Yeah.
Thank you a lot.
And thank you
And
very much all of you for
thanks
the
again for participating in the whole thing and making interesting presentations.
thank you.
Now, I think Maria Giovanna wants to take the floor for another 2-3 minutes to tell us something that she considers important. Please.
Yes, I also share the view of Anam about energy efficiency and about the importance for developing and emerging countries, even if in the group of countries she considered of developing and emerging, there are large differences. So for instance, to couple Nepal with India, yeah, I mean, they are close, they are neighbors, but the growth level of one country and the perspective of one country with respect to the other are completely different. This is one point. Second, the thing I liked about your paper was the effort to make a connection between productivity and export, performance of firms, and energy efficiency. And I would really like to delve into her data to see why there is a different performance in connection with energy efficiency for small and large firms, because that's what I've seen. And this is interesting because in many countries, small and medium firms are the reality. So most firms are small and medium, while very few firms are large firms. So if it is only for large firms to reap the benefits from energy efficiency, what can we think about the social textures of countries and about the real life of small firms that represent the bulk of the economic life of countries? So this is another point, which is, I mean, it really makes me think a lot. And I also appreciated the perspective, it's very challenging perspective about the social dimension, the human dimension of energy efficiency search, about what she was saying, Nives was saying. I mean, the paradigm, basically the neoclassical paradigm of cost and benefits is not sufficient to represent the single individual instance of or needs for energy efficiency in terms of future growth of humanity, in the sense that human beings have multiple dimensions that usually economics disregards. So it's really interesting. I mean, I think that I did not really catch the main message of their contribution, of your contribution, Nives, because I would really like to understand what is missing in the economic, in the classical paradigm, investigating the energy efficiency paradigm, and what how the individual and social perspective could be shaped or remodeled in order to allow for more spaces for the different needs and instances of sociality, interconnection, and to the environment, to future growth, to future generations. So I think this is also very interesting. So that's it. Whatever you want to suggest about, anyway, about productivity for me is very interesting at firm level because I'm working on firm levels, but still I understand that the macroeconomics still provides the best data to work on energy efficiency.
Thanks a lot, Maria Giovanna. It's always a pleasure to hear consensus in this type of opinion on energy efficiency. Let's follow with Jubair Syed because it's the order of the presentation in the program. So Jubair, 2 minutes.
Okay,
What
thank you.
is important that you want to convey?
Thank you.
Thank you for answering the question of Honorata Nigata Lukasiewska. So extra things that you may want to say.
Yes, of course, like the model that I prepared, especially focusing on the energy security issues and considering the environmental sustainability. But from this session, I got the idea that I should also consider the energy efficiency issues in my model, because even though this is a dynamic model, over the years, the energy efficiency issues are coming into consideration, and they have significant impacts on the overall production and the consumption patterns. So maybe I could also improve my model by incorporating the energy efficiency issues, and also maybe extending it to other regions of the world, because this model is too specific for developing regions, because we consider the highly growth trend and the other factors, but in a stable economy, how these interactions happen, that also need to be considered. So thank you for listening and accommodating me in this analysis. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you a lot also. And we follow with Nives de la Valle. Please tell us what you think is important from the point of view of the Joint Research Center and your activity there.
Yes, thanks a lot, and I would like to thank especially Maria Giovanna for the nice positive feedback. So I take the opportunity to build on the comment made by Maria Giovanna to say what I would like to point out. Yes, it's the contribution of this perspective is to make the point that so far we have been used the neoclassical economic perspective and lately the behavioral science perspective. So that actually also now we can see that behavioral science is enabled to model and make predictions and can make also some quantitative assessment of what the policy effect will look like. So this is a purely quantitative and evidence-based approach. But what we say is that, okay, if we want to increase the adoption of energy efficiency made by individuals, then we also need to account for the social dimensions. And if we want to embed these social aspects, then we need to use other methods. We need to legitimize other methods and be open also to other epistemological assumptions. So, for instance, legitimize the views of citizens, and then perhaps then, if we want to model also the social practices and then the citizens made by inputs, then we can also adopt quantitative methods. So what we are saying is that we need to adopt a more mixed method approach, and the mixed method comes from the citizen engagement if we want to account also for the social dimensions. So it's a provocative perspective. So based on a review, let's say.
Thank you a lot. It's nice to hear that we need models. We need to understand better what is happening, what is the reality of energy efficiency penetration into, let's say, into our lives and into our economies as well. I think we are arriving at the end of this section. I wanted to thank the Italian Association for Energy Economics for offering us the opportunity. Actually, I would rather like to mention two things. There were two pictures with the previous Pope with people in the San Pietro looking at the Pope, and the picture was showing the material world and the spiritual world of the person there. And the second with the latest Pope, with Pope Francis, with the same people looking, the same crowd looking at the Pope, but everybody had a phone in his hand or a tablet, and they were picturing, photoing, and so on, making photos. We have a new third world that is coming on. It's the electronic world, the virtual world. And that's why I wanted to thank the Italian Association for Energy Economics for, even in the virtual world, giving us the possibility to express our research, to share our results, and so on. Thank you a lot again. Thanks you authors and presenters. It's been, in my opinion, an interesting share of experience and topics. And with this, we end our session and pass to the host of this big conference. Thank you again. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
very
a lot.
Bye.
Much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Stay safe.